Faultless. Absolutely faultless. Nadia Comaneci. Now what are the judges going to say about that? There's the smile.
Montreal 1976, and what the judges said was among the most famous numbers in Olympic history. The crowd saw the scoreboard first.
And 10 has gone on the board. That's perfection, and that is Olympic history for Nadia Comaneci.
A perfect 10 on the uneven bars. 41 years on, many of us old enough to have watched it at the time will still remember that vividly. What Montreal remembers, perhaps more vividly, is the financial cost.
It was not very well managed as a financial project. And we have a fabulous stadium, but I think it cost more than all of the covered stadia in North America put together.
Put together.
That's Dick Pound of the IOC, also a Montreal resident. He was talking to CNN, and when CNN went out onto the streets, one number that people remembered was how long it took to pay off hosting the games.
It took us 30 years to pay it off, and as a taxpayer, not too happy about that.
30 years for just over a fortnight, and that kind of debt is typical. There are exceptions. Some cities can manage.
But as a general principle, and for 90% of the hosts, it doesn't make any economic sense whatsoever to throw a 17-day party and spend $20 billion and declare that you're doing something good for the economic development of the city.
That's Andrew Zimbalist, an acclaimed sports economist and the author of Circus Maximus, the economic gamble behind hosting the Olympics and the World Cup. For a long time, his was a voice from the margins. His inconvenient truth about the high financial cost and low financial rewards of hosting the Olympics was largely ignored by cities like Rio. But now the figures are so telling, the Olympics are running out of cities that want to host them, and the IOC is clearly listening to that.
Because this week, the IOC basically said, our business model is not working. We don't have enough cities that are willing to bid. We're not willing to go out again in 2021 and have a selection or contest amongst cities to pick the 2028 winner, because they're afraid that there aren't any other cities out there that can do it. And maybe there might be a city that stepped forward and said, we want to do it, but that city would end up creating an economic disaster and further hurting the brand of the Olympics. So in order to avoid that embarrassment, they're picking two cities at once.
Yes, it's the bird in the hand scenario, with Paris and LA the only cities willing and able to host the Games. The IOC, with a matter-of-fact pragmatism, is saying yes to them both. The only question is in which order. What this signals is that the days of multiple cities fighting for hosting rights is over. Remember the envelope being opened? Let's go back to 2009 and join the crowd watching the IOC announcement on a giant screen in Trafalgar Square.
The International Olympic Committee has the honor of announcing that the Games of the 30th Olympiad in 2012 are awarded to the city of London.
Like Nadia Comaneci in 1976, that scene too is now Olympic history. The cuter host is now very short.
So the model isn't working, and they need a new model. It won't work to tweak the old model. They tried to do that with Agenda 2020 back in 1984. So that's not going to be the solution. What they need is something drastically different, and that thing that's drastically different might be picking one city to be the permanent host.
Some cities can do it, and they're most likely to be cities that have hosted before and retained the Games infrastructure intact. Incredibly, the stadium in Rio, and the Olympics were only there last year, is already in need of major repair. Upkeep is expensive. Los Angeles, though, that's a different story.
Because they have virtually every single venue they need. They have a modern transportation network. They have a modern communications network and hospitality infrastructure and security infrastructure. And I think that their budget is actually a very sensible one, that they can host the Olympics, probably even having a modest surplus. There would be some additional expense because the U.S. government would probably have to pick up about $2 billion worth of security. So that would be a nationwide expense. but Los Angeles could do it. Los Angeles is also, by the way, their plan uses the UCLA dormitories, the student dormitories for the Olympic Village. There are very few places in the world that can do that. In the Paris plan, for instance, they're going to build the Olympic Village in Saint-Denis and then convert the Olympic Village into residential properties. They would never be able to bring the Olympics back to Saint-Denis because the Olympic Village would be gone. It would become housing.
To understand what's involved, it's worth listing the numbers. Bloomberg has done great work here. Thank you, Bloomberg. Their list includes staging more than 300 events across some 30 sports in 17 days, housing 11,000 athletes and 5,000 coaches, finding 42,000 hotel rooms for Olympic officials and corporate sponsors, we mustn't forget them, staffing almost 300,000 contractors and volunteers, supplying a 20-acre broadcast centre with enough electricity to power 10,000 homes, and deploying some 20,000 military, police and private security personnel. Few cities can do that. Even fewer can do it without a significant loss. Even fewer want to give it a go. And post 9/11, there are other issues too. Security, for example.
So in Rio, they had 85,000 troops, military troops, police and others who were on the streets using tanks, using modern military equipment, and it's a very, very repressive atmosphere.
And the repression can start long before the Games. A significant issue is land. The Games have to be in or near cities, but cities are full of people.
Beijing, I think, set a record because they reportedly, I didn't count them myself, but several reports said that 1.5 million people were thrown out of their homes.
It all adds up and up and up. The greatest event in sport now finds itself loved, competed at, but not competed for. Winning at the Olympics is still one of the greatest prizes in all of sport. But hosting the Olympics?
The Olympics is conceived of and is still supposed to be an event honoring the best athletes of the world. It's not supposed to be a construction event. It's become a construction event. We have to move away from that as the basic concept for the IOC model. And, hopefully the economic circumstances and the political reaction to those circumstances will push the IOC and the sponsors of the IOC in a direction that makes that change happen.